This podcast is sponsored by Aleppo Restaurant on Wonderland Road North and Crossings Pub and Eatery on Hyde Park.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever and whenever you may be listening, we welcome you back to another edition of the Vickers Crossing podcast, coming to you again from Crossings Pub and Eatery on Hyde Park Road in London. And my name is Rob Henderson from Holy Trinity St. Stephen's Anglican Church.
I be Kevin George. I am the rector of St. Aidan's Anglican Church here in London on Oxford Street West. And I am shaking a container of stir sticks, which are ballots for soon-to-be winner. We'll get to that in a bit.
Are we giving something away today?
Oh, we are. We'll get to that in a bit. But
okay.
I'm so excited I can't stop making sound effects.
Very good. Ian's here too. Hi, Ian.
Hello, that's me.
How you doing?
I'm all right.
Good.
I'm
Get
excited.
a busy week, Ian, or?
Yeah, I've had a really busy week with like schoolwork and things like that.
What are you excited about?
The weekend.
The weekend. It's something good to be excited about.
excited
I don't know
about
what
the
that
weekend.
is. You know, as a clergy
We haven't had a
person,
weekend in
I haven't had a weekend in, well,
since
20
last
years?
summer.
Yeah. I don't know what a weekend is.
It's only when we're off that we get a weekend.
This whole TGIF thing, I don't get it. Yeah.
TGIF means I'm getting very close to a very busy few days.
Exactly. Well, good. It's good to be back, and we're back in our usual spots.
Finally back at Crossing.
We're back at Crossings in the upper room after a little time over at the London Convention Centre, where we had some fun with our synod with the Diocese of Huron, and had fun having people come up and chat with us and get in touch with a lot of different things happening in and around our diocese and in other things as well. It's an amazing thing what happens when you set up a couple of microphones in a busy hallway.
Wicked.
It just attracts people from all over the place.
I was fascinated by spectators.
Yeah, we had crowds lining up around us.
Like there were actually people standing around watching. Did you feel it was hectic, Ian? Or?
I felt like it was kind of like speed dating.
Oh,
It was like speed dating. Yeah, one after the other.
It was wild.
Coming in. Right. Now, we also have to realize, too, that, as we said, we were standing next to the washrooms, Kevin.
that's true. We
So
were
they might not have
conveniently
been coming down
located.
to see us. They might be coming down for something else.
We were conveniently located between the binary washrooms, the male and female washrooms, and the totally binary washrooms. We couldn't have just. I was entertained by the fact that we were right outside the women's washroom, and there was one of those Dyson jet dryers in there, and it sounded like a 747 was taking off every time one of the women washed their hands. But we listened back to the recording, and oddly, I can't believe it, but you can't hear it because it sounded awfully loud when we were there.
Yeah,
It's
well,
the
if you haven't heard it, tune in. We had two-parter
Two-parter, yeah.
from Synod, so check
Heck
those
yeah.
out. And a little something different today. We also want to say hi to our friends at Aleppo Restaurant, too, one of our sponsors on Wonderland Road.
Great people there,
Yes.
Tony and Shireen, and they're very happy to be sponsoring us and taking part in what we do here. So
So, Ian, it's the weekend. If you don't want to cook this weekend, you go to Aleppo
Go to
and have them
Aleppo.
cook for you.
Sounds
get
like a plan.
yourself
Okay.
get yourself a chicken tawuk.
A what?
Chicken tawuk, nice barbecued chicken breasts over the charcoal fire they have there. It's fantastic. Get a fattoush salad to go with it, maybe some kibbe and a lentil soup, and you're all set. A little bit of hummus, maybe some baba ganoush,
And a root beer.
and a root beer.
Wow, that's my whole order right there.
Yeah, no, you could.
Brilliant.
Or if you're like something you like a little spicy,
Sure.
you get the shijuk. The shijuk is like a ground beef with a nice spice in it, also done on a
Little bit of a
barbecue. It's
kick.
very good, yeah.
Wow,
You
wow,
might
wow.
know. You might ask how I know the menu so well.
How do you know the menu so well?
Well, I eat there quite a bit, honestly.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Brilliant.
That's good. And the laughter you hear in the room as well is our guest today. And I think we'll just have Ian introduce our guest today.
All right, so our fantastic guest today is one of my close friends, Samantha Powless, who I know.
He knew her once upon a time.
She's not past, Ian. She's right here.
I know her from working at camp, and we became pretty close friends from there. And I thought she would be a great guest on this podcast. Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
What is Samantha all about? What does she do, Ian?
She is working on her MRP for political science. She was a graduate from Brock University in St. Catharines. She lived
was
in
or
London.
she is? I
She
mean-
lived in London. I'm talking past tense.
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
like she's dead.
She's here right now.
I know.
I
I
might
don't know
be a
why she
ghost here. I
was.
don't know. Like,
What is an MRP?
That's a great question.
it's a major research paper.
There it
Okay.
is. That's what it means. It's a major research paper.
As a part of a degree in
Political science.
Okay.
Political science. There you
At
go.
Brock University.
Brock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good program there. Did you like that program?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I did my undergrad and now my graduate degree
Okay,
there.
good.
And Samantha, you're originally from the area?
Yes, I am. I'm
In
from
fact,
London.
you are more from here than anybody else is from here.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were here before us settler people
Yes.
turned up here. So please tell us about your heritage.
So I grew up in London. We grew up in the East End. I went to high school at John Paul II Catholic Secondary School. I grew up with my mom and my older brother, who's a couple years older than me. I'm also Indigenous, and so like part of why we're in London is because we're so close to the Oneida of the Thames reservation. Right. But I haven't ever lived there, so that's the thing. But yeah, that's originally where I'm from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are glad that you're with us today because Ian tells me you're quite interesting.
Yes.
And he says, Samantha will be great to have on.
I hope so.
It was the first time Ian looked at us and said, I want to book somebody on the podcast. I said, you know what,
Yeah.
buddy, you're the boss.
That's right.
Yeah, I run
Producer
this.
Ian is the man.
Good. Well, I'm glad he booked you.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you could come. So
Me too.
before we get to more with Samantha, we got a couple of things to do. Kevin's shaking his cup over here. So why don't we take care of the big item at hand today?
What are we giving away, Rob?
What are we giving away? Well, I know we're drawing some little sticks out of this cup with people's names on them that have subscribed to our podcast over the last little while. So
Yeah,
if you're
there's
in
about-
there...
There's about 70 in there.
Yeah, there's about 70 in
Wow.
there, and we thank you for that. But I'm not too sure what the whole prize pack is.
So what we're giving away today are a set of 4 Vickers Crossing pens.
4.
4
Can we afford 4?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
My goodness.
Turns out we have a
We
few.
get a few bucks off Samantha to pay for the
Pay
for the
four,
pens.
4 pens. A hoodie.
A hoodie?
With our nice logo, our new
Very
logo.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a T-shirt with our logo, as well as a gift certificate for $25 from here at
Right.
Crossings,
Yep.
where we record, Crossings Pub and Eatery, and $25 from Aleppo, where you can get some chicken tawuk, sajouk, some fatouche, some, kibi.
The other ooks.
Yeah, all the ooks.
All the
You
ooks.
can get all the ooks
And
over there.
Kevin, apparently.
And Kevin.
And Kevin.
Who hangs
Kevin will
around
be
there a
there.
lot.
You might say
Yeah.
hello to me when you get in. And so these folks have kindly subscribed to our podcast and let others know that they have and so on. So what the ballots are stir sticks from Starbucks.
Oh, okay.
And our container is a Tim Hortons cup.
Oh, very good.
Okay.
So equal opportunity here.
Yep. So we're going to let Samantha draw the winner.
All right, Samantha.
Ready? Drum roll, please.
And the winner is...
Oh, she got the blank one.
the blank in there.
Why did you put a blank?
For shits and giggles, I put a blank in there, and I can't believe you drew it.
Of all the ones I could have picked, it was the blank
170
one.
shot, and you
There was a
rolled
1 in
blank.
70, and you pulled the blank. That's pretty
Yeah, I
brilliant.
could mess up
All right,
that
let's try
quickly.
again.
Round 2.
Oh, man, I'm glad we don't do this full-time work.
Nathan Johnson.
Nathan Johnson
From, Windsor.
from Windsor,
Our new
Ontario.
model.
Yeah, our new model.
Nathan's our new model.
Wow.
That's right.
For
Yeah.
our T-shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you take a look on the Vickers Crossings Facebook page, and you're going to see some sexy pictures of Nathan sporting our Vickers Crossing T-shirt.
Yeah,
So-
Nathan
Yeah.
dropped by with a bunch of youth delegates from Synod when we were at Synod and subscribed and did some modeling for us. So
Yeah.
good. Congratulations, Nathan.
Great guy.
Yeah. He's
Fantastic.
going to have to come to London, though, to use
Yeah.
those gift certificates. So we'll get Ken and Sue Paulton to drive them up, and
Yeah.
we can have a visit and dinner, and they can pay.
That's right. Fantastic.
See
At
how this all
Aleppo.
works out? At Aleppo. That's right. Good, good. Well, congratulations. It's time now for another edition of Are You Ready, Ian?
I'm so ready.
Ask Ian. Anything. Man, that is deep.
I got to tell you, I don't know where you said that from, but it sounds like you're at the bottom of a barrel.
I've been at the bottom of a few of those. All right, Ian, so we have a
Roll
question
out
today
the barrel.
from young Beth McKinley.
Oh, Beth,
Brilliant.
isn't
And
she
Beth
from your
is
parish?
a parishioner at Holy Trinity St. Stephen's.
Brilliant.
And an avid listener of the Vickers Crossing.
All right.
And also a big sports fan. Loves the Toronto Maple
Loves the
Leafs.
sports. Oh, sad.
I know, but that's okay. We'll
That
let
is
it
sad.
pass. Blue Jay fan, too.
Oh, God rest her soul.
But another Toronto team's doing something tonight.
Yes.
We're recording this on the night
Yes.
of the NBA Finals about to begin.
Yeah.
So the
Historic.
question, Ian, is who do you think will win this year's NBA championship?
I'm not a huge basketball watcher,
You have to be now.
but I am now, and Raptors all the way,
Okay.
as you know.
In how many games?
As many as them to win.
See, as a political science major, isn't that the perfect answer?
I mean, politicians
come on.
really
Yes,
do avoid a real
that's-
answer.
no
They're
real
good
answer.
at it.
And I feel like it's going to be between 4 and 7 games.
Brilliant. You know what?
See, that's more specific. That's more
No,
politician-like.
I want you to go on a limb between 4 and 7. What's your choice?
I'm going to say 5.
Raptors in 5.
Wow, that'd be
Very
dominant
good.
over
Very
Golden
good.
State.
6.
All right.
By the way, when you listen, if maybe you already have, but if you haven't, listen to the previous 2 podcasts from Synod, because there was one guy there taking his life in his own hands. He was
yeah.
the bravest man in Ontario, walking around the London Convention Centre, 350 people with a Golden State Warriors hat on.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's
we
risky.
were worried for him.
Yeah, we were.
Big time.
He was tall though. I don't think anybody could have reached
Any
him.
other predictions we want to do though? You want to do a prediction? while
I
we're doing
will
this?
say I like the Raptors to win. I think there's something going on. There's a spirit. There's an energy. So I like Kawhi. I think he's going to be dominant. I think it's his year to show that he is the best player in the league right now. So I think they're going to do it, but it's going to be a hard-fought series. So maybe it will be bought. I don't know. But hard-fought series. So I'll say 7 games.
Okay. Samantha, do you want to take a shot at this?
I, like Ian, know 0 things about basketball. I do not watch. But I'm going to make the unpopular prediction and think that the Golden State Warriors are actually going
Okay,
to
there
take
we
it.
go. Yeah.
But I do think that the Raptors are going to put up a fight, and I think they'll win it in 7 games.
I say Kyle Lowry wins his first NBA championship.
Yes.
And he hits the
Blood, sweat, and tears.
winning buzzer with 4.3 seconds left on the clock
Nice.
in Game 7
That's
to
so
bring it home.
specific.
Oh man, that's
Wow,
storybook
that's
right there.
specific.
Book
That
it.
is very
Really was.
specific.
There we go.
Wow.
Wow.
Do we have another contest?
We have one more thing to do.
A
One
contest.
more. thing.
It's time for trivia, Kevin.
It
All
is
right.
time for
I
trivia.
think he's got the
Oh, you
card.
got-
I do have the card. It's the...
What year are we on?
We're on year 1984.
Okay, and what is this thing called again?
The Canon Tavish Trivia Cup
Oh,
Championship.
Yeah. It is, yeah. Canon Tavish.
a bit
If you
of
haven't
struggle.
seen him, there's a cartoon of him on our Facebook page. He sort of looks like me if I had blonde hair, like had hair, and it was blonde. He's about as rotund as I am, so he's our mascot for Canon Tavish.
So what this is these boys ask me questions all the time. So it is my turn to ask these 2 priests a question from the
Thank God he said priest.
a question from the 40th year anniversary Trivia Pursuit game. So would our esteemed guest please pick a category for Kevin?
For Kevin, I'm picking arts and literature.
Brilliant.
Okay.
My
you
favorite.
I've heard.
And for Rob?
I'm going to pick. I'm going to change my answer now. I'm trying to think about it. I'm going to pick geography.
Geography, of course.
Geography.
Well, I
Okay.
did find my way here today without any problems.
So we're on 1984. What's the
1984.
score right now?
The score is 3-2 for Rob.
Oh, man.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Let's ask Rob his question first. Rob, what
Ian.
current capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina
No, no. Oh, dear.
Herzegovina.
Herzegovina, sure, hosted the Winter Olympics, marking the first time the games were held in a communist
easy.
state?
It is easy, but I'm going blank.
All right,
Okay,
well,
let
you
me
get a
think
minute
about
to
it for a
decide.
minute.
What is mine?
All right.
Well, Mr. Arts and Literature, thank you, Samantha. You're so kind.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
What is the French title for The Birdcage, the play that won a Tony for Best Musical? And pronunciation
Ooh la la.
does
Nothing I love
count.
more than musicals. We've been getting this is my 3rd musical question, I think.
All right, so
Oh, man,
Rob?
I'm drawing a blank.
I
know
will,
what
I
it
will
is,
go with
and
my
I'm
answer to be.
absolutely blank.
hey, it's Rob's first.
Oh, okay, Rob.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the 84 Olympics from
Come on, Rob. You can do it.
Bosnia. What were they? What
Winter
was the name
Olympics.
of the city?
Well, he's running out
I'm
of time.
sorry,
I
I'm going to
feel.
have to tap out. I cannot
Can I guess?
remember it. You can
Yeah,
guess.
sure.
Yugoslavia.
No, it's
Sarajevo.
Sarajevo.
Yes,
Sarajevo.
yes.
Sarajevo,
Yes.
Yugoslavia.
Sarajevo.
It was when it was Yugoslavia, when Bosnia
Right.
Herzegovina
Right,
was
Sarajevo.
Yugoslavia.
As soon as you said it
I didn't know
came
how to
me.
pronounce it.
So that's it.
So I'm going to say, I'm not going to get this right. I feel like the answer is something about about 2 men or something like that. But I'll say La Cage.
It's La Cage aux Folles.
Oh, you know.
It was
So
La
that was
Cage.
close.
I was close. Half a
close.
point.
That's half a point.
We don't
Okay,
give
well,
half
it's 3
points.
to 2.5.
I think we should.
We
3 to
should.
2.5.
I knew it was La Cage. I knew it was a part of it. But anyway,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? I
What
think
are
I
you
made a
gonna
valiant effort. I feel good about my effort this week.
That's good. No,
Yeah.
at least, it's good to show up and try, Kevin.
A for effort.
That's right.
Yeah, A is also used for me for another word,
Well, we won't go there.
articulate.
Articulate.
Of course.
So I was thinking too.
Yeah, that's where my head went. Right there.
Attitudinal.
Attitude. Get my thesaurus
Well,
out now.
Samantha, we're glad that you've come to be with us. I know that part of what you're engaged in school is you were explaining to me before we went on the air that you do a lot of work around constitutional law.
Yeah.
And some of your research has been involved in that, and you are interested in sections 2 and 15, I believe, of the Charter, which speak of rights and religious freedoms and freedoms of expression, freedom of gender, freedom of sexuality, all those freedoms that were offered, rights and freedoms.
Yep.
We talk about faith in the public square here on the Vickers Crossing, how those things intersect. And I just wonder, part of what you were talking about is what happens when these things conflict. Maybe you could share with those who listen what you find interesting or challenging about those rights and freedoms that we have, and how they relate to your work and what you're doing.
Sure. So I take mostly a legal perspective in a lot of the work that I do. And when you look at the Charter in general and you look at all of our sections and all of the rights that we've been guaranteed, it looks really wonderful on paper. And you're so excited about living in a country where your rights are guaranteed in this country. But there are instances where these rights conflict, and the courts typically have to decide which ones are more important than the other ones. So we see that with cases of Section 2 and Section 15. So freedom of religion often can conflict with freedom of expression. So if I were to say something against a religion, that would obviously be infringing upon someone else's freedom of religion, but that's my freedom of speech. And so those are in conflict. And the same goes with Section 15. If someone refuses to offer services to someone who might be of LGBT community, that's obviously infringing on their Section 15 equality rights, but they claim their Section 2 rights of their freedom of religion. And so that can be a little bit challenging.
Yeah, it's an interesting intersection right
It
there.
is. And so it's hard to figure out which rights are actually more important than the others, because the Charter's not supposed to obviously weigh those rights against one another. That's not the intention. But the way that society works, they are in conflict with one another. So it's hard to figure out which ones actually matter more than the others.
Right, and that's the thing. It's about weighing or
Yeah.
talking about which one is more important than
Exactly.
another, right? And
Yeah.
that's the conflict.
Yeah. And so, that really, so what I'm doing in my research for my MRP is kind of talking about sexual assault in courts. And a lot of the discussion is about balancing the rights of the accused, which a lot of the Charter rights are, as well as balancing the rights of the complainants who are saying that they've been sexually assaulted, and making sure that they get a fair trial as well, and trying to see which ones we can actually put forward in courts.
Okay.
So just thinking about that a little bit, and just teasing it apart a little bit further. So like one of the interesting examples you raise is like, in the Anglican Church, one of the ongoing debates, seemingly tireless debates, seems like my entire adult life and beyond has been around what originally began as a conversation about blessing same-sex unions, and now has become a conversation about gay marriage.
Yeah.
This coming July, we have the second of we have what are called synods. The General Synod is sort of our parliament, our governing body, and it meets triannually. So in our governance model, in order to make a change in doctrine, which the marriage canon, if you're talking about marriage, is a doctrinal issue,
Yep.
you have to pass it twice.
Okay.
So it passed narrowly 3 years ago,
Wow.
and the next one's coming up in July.
Okay.
So should it pass again, then there is provision for dioceses which find this objectionable to their beliefs to opt out.
Yeah.
But that as a matter of doctrine in the Anglican Church, gay marriage will be approved and allowed.
Okay.
And so this has been an ongoing conversation for us.
Yeah.
But there are other churches, like the Roman Catholic Church, for instance,
Yep.
where this is not a conversation at all. And so I like you, I sort of struggle with the notion that one particular right is more important than the other. I might not agree with somebody's rights, or I do agree with the rights. I might not agree with somebody's position,
Yeah.
but their right to express that position is something that I hope to feel protected.
Yeah.
So I think about that. Are there any, in your research that you've done, are there any examples of that you can think of, or things that have come along that sort of make you go, how can the church do a better job of addressing, providing for the rights of the vulnerable? Because obviously, I mean, to name my bias, I feel very strongly that those in the gay and lesbian community deserve the full protection under the law that we all do, and the same rights that we all do. And so for me, I want to make sure that they're able to enjoy marriage as the same equal sacrament that I would provide for a heterosexual couple.
Yeah.
I just wonder if there are any of those interesting cases where there's been a challenge in court or not around a religious body's right to not do that.
I think one of the more interesting cases, I can't remember the name of it, which was really frustrating, but there was a case in the U.S., which is a little bit different. They legalized same-sex marriage about 10 years after we did. But they had a case where a LGBT couple went to a bakery to get a wedding cake for them, and the bakery refused to do that on religious grounds. So it's less church, but it's still freedom of religion. So and their equality right was actually protected. But they were told, like, there were other bakeries that they could have gone to, so they somewhat lost, somewhat won. But with regards to the church as like an institution, legally they are allowed to say no. But I think what churches can do is kind of, I don't know too much because I'm not as religious, meaning I'm not. But I think it would be beneficial to go back to the Word of God and look at how much He preaches love and kindness and respect for one another. And I think that takes priority over saying that LGBT couples can't get married. And I think supporting that the way that you do is a much better way of approaching it, and those rights wouldn't be in conflict anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Robert?
Well, and that's the kind of the debate inside of the church, isn't it? Because you're bringing up Word of God, which is an understanding of theology and that sort of thing, as opposed to kind of a secular model that we're running into, right? And that's again that intersection. So
Tell me, what about the notwithstanding clause? I mean, the American example aside, because that really is different, because it raises the issue, because it, you know, obviously, and America's is a whole other mess right now. Anyway, I mean, just look what's happening in Alabama and all over, actually. But anyway, we'll go on to that maybe later. But so you do this constitutional stuff. You're doing poli-sci. A number of years ago, it was unconscionable to think that any government in this country would use the notwithstanding clause for any reason. So far, with the rise in populism in this country, we now have a government here in Ontario which has invoked the notwithstanding clause in order to reduce the size of council in Toronto. And now a government in Quebec which is passing Bill C-22, I think it's called, which will restrict going forward people from wearing obvious religious symbols when they engage in the work of the public service. So everyone, including teachers, which seems to be clearly targeted at the Muslim community, because it is more obvious with women who wear the hijab. So now you've got a government there that says they will use the notwithstanding clause to invoke that, and there have been whispers out of Alberta from Jason Kenney that he's prepared to use the notwithstanding clause around some of the changes he wants to make. I think that the notwithstanding clause, when it was brought into the charter, was something that was really sacrosanct. It was sort of like, this is not going to get used. It really is like the nuclear option. But now it seems all of a sudden to be something that these governments are prepared to use. As a student of political science yourself and somebody who's sort of engaged in this, how do you feel about the business of the notwithstanding clause all of a sudden becoming an out? It's basically what it's saying is we can write all the rights and freedoms we want in the charter, but as long as a premier or a government says, well, we're going to say notwithstanding that, we're going to go ahead and do this anyway.
The notwithstanding clause is a little bit tricky. It was absolutely necessary for us to get our constitution. That was the only way the provinces were actually going to sign on to it in 1982.
Well, a province. Quebec.
All of them actually, just like Quebec hasn't signed on the constitution, the charter. They haven't signed it, which is silly, but it technically still applies to them regardless. But all of the provinces got together and pretty much decided that that had to be part of it because they were unwilling to give up their like provincial rights and their jurisdiction for the charter. And so they made sure that they had an escape clause, but it wasn't intended to be used the way that it's currently being used. So like when the drafters of a constitution put in section 33, they didn't imagine that a conservative government would use it in the way that Doug Ford has used it or in the way that Quebec intends to use it to discriminate against minorities. So I'm a little bit conflicted of I don't think that it should be unused because there was a reason for it to be in our constitution, but the reasons that are being used for it, Doug Ford's use is a little bit silly. It's not a reasonable use of it. But as for Quebec, unfortunately, they constitutionally are allowed to do what they're doing. And the best hope that we have is to re-elect a new government in Quebec. I just wish they weren't doing what they're doing because they're so clearly discriminating against a very targeted minority.
What is the original intent then? What's the spirit around it?
It is to give the provinces a way out of having just federal control over all jurisdiction because the charter applies to all state legislation, including provincial states.
Right, okay.
Yeah. But it also only applies to certain sections of the charter.
You mentioned earlier that your heritage is Indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
Is there work you're doing on your paper and your work this summer around Indigenous issues in the Charter? And if so, what kind of things are you looking at?
My work on Indigenous issues is typically more so like personal advocacy that I do. My MRP isn't focused on Indigenous issues, but I did recently write a paper for school about reconciliation in the Trudeau era, which was a little bit interesting because I recently listened to the podcast when the local MP was here, and he was talking about how great Trudeau was, but I just wrote a 20-page paper on his issues with reconciliation.
Peter Fragascatos. We have Samantha here. She'd like to talk to you because she disagrees with your assessment of the Trudeau government's record on Indigenous rights and reconciliation, truth and reconciliation, specifically with the promises that were made, I suspect, in the last election where they said they were going to implement all 94 recommendations.
Yes. So my paper specifically talked about one of the issues is the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Inquiry that they started, which was a really great effort to begin. But the way that it's set up, which I've heard through like conversation with people who've actually testified at the inquiry, is that it is still set up in a way that is a settler kind of institution. You still have to be sworn in the way that you would if you were going to court. And a lot of it is just kind of not real efforts to decolonize that process. And it re-victimizes every woman who speaks there. And they're not giving them the proper time and resources. So the inquiry actually isn't doing anything. And they're not solving the issue of where these women are going and why it is such an issue that Indigenous women are the ones being targeted. But the issues with pipelines are also really tricky.
Yeah. So Andrew Scheer says he's going to open a corridor where all these things can go through no matter what. How do you respond to that? Like, I mean, basically, I think that the First Nations in BC have been, and I mean, there's no panacea here. I mean, it's not as though we talk about these things as though there's one attitude that reflects First Nations, but we also know that the First Nations in British Columbia are conflicted. Some agree with the pipeline, some are opposed to it. But that being said, the largest sort of number of the chiefs out there have grand concerns about this pipeline going through British Columbia. Andrew Scheer now wants to sort of create this corridor where there will be access to energy and all those things. Yeah.
It's remarkably problematic because it's also violating the Constitution, because Section 35 guarantees Indigenous rights, but it also requires, because the Supreme Court has made it so, that governments have to consult when there's something affecting Indigenous communities, and obviously a pipeline going through their territory is. And so just kind of overriding all of that is ignoring the Constitution, which isn't acceptable.
It's in vogue because you can invoke the notwithstanding clause.
Not to Section 35.
Okay.
The notwithstanding clause only applies to sections 2, 7 through 15.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
that's good to know. Let me
Yes.
get my. Let me get my.
I don't have my numbers all lined up on that one. I can tell
Sorry, I was not brushed up on that. I apologize. Yeah.
But Section 35
So
is...
what you're saying is he's screwed.
Yes.
Oh, he's in deep shit now.
The issue is that, like, he's still... The chart, or not the charter, sorry. Section 35 is outside of the charter. It's just part of the Constitution Act of 1982.
Oh.
Yes, which is also part of why Section 33 doesn't apply. But
Sorry, someone locked their keys in the car. Would you please report to the parking lot?
But having something in writing doesn't stop a government from kind of going forward anyway, and court challenges typically take a decent amount of time to actually go through the courts. So it'll be interesting to see how it actually plays out if he were to be elected. But as of right now, his constitutional duty would be to consult with these communities. Mm-hmm. And despite the fact that there are difference of opinions in these communities, he still needs to be talking to them and making sure that he's talking to the right people, meaning the hereditary chiefs and the people who are actually in the community rather than the elected band councils.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you obviously know your stuff. You've been doing a little bit of studying.
I hope so. I've been 5 years into
yeah,
this.
no kidding. No kidding. So what's the hope for you after all this study and writing and that sort of thing? What are you trying to accomplish here?
I would like to get a PhD in political science, hopefully, and then teach in universities eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you hoping comes out of the work you're doing on a not just a personal note, because it does obviously move you toward a PhD, but are you hoping that something comes out of it that's going to constitute some change or something for people to see in a different light?
Very much so. That's actually the motivation behind my MRP. A lot of work in academia is just kind of self-fulfilling, but that isn't enough for me. That doesn't fulfill me as a person. Mm-hmm. The reason that I'm writing what I am on sexual assault law is so hopefully there will actually be a change in what's happening, because it's really unjust what's going on, and I don't like that. And so if I can get my work out there and make noise about it, then hopefully something will actually change. And same with my advocacy on Indigenous issues.
Right.
So why sexual assault? What motivated you there?
Recent news articles as well as like personal history. It's been something that's affected myself as well as my friends and my families my entire life. Sexual assault has been present. It's something that I've witnessed far too often. And I've done a lot of readings in courses, and it's just kind of outstanding how inappropriate things are when they're going to court. I know a lot of people know about Justice Robert Camp when he made some really inappropriate comments about a young lady who said that she was raped, and he told her, "Why didn't you just sit down and close your legs?"
Yeah.
And so it was actually quite horrific. And so things like that are actually a lot more common than I think people realize. And I'm not okay with that. And I couldn't imagine ever putting someone that I know who's been sexually assaulted through something like that if they were ever to report that. And so, yeah, I'd like to make it a little bit safer and more comfortable for people if they feel to report.
Now, Ian mentioned earlier that you guys got to know each other hanging out at camp.
Yeah.
This is a church camp that you went to.
Yes.
So can you two tell us a little bit about what you're doing at this camp and why you'd bother to go?
I enjoy camp mostly because of I've had
Whoa. What
Okay.
is this camp?
Yeah, name the camp.
Where do you work?
What is this mysterious camp? I mean, I feel like what is that? Never mind. So what happens at camp?
So the camp is called Camp Kimoki. It's out in Kamoka, outside of London. To me, it's like a second home. I have some of my closest friends that I've met, for example, I've met at camp, and I enjoy helping like the kids and sort of helping myself through the kids, because I can see myself in the kids and their energy I feed off.
There, Ian?
Huh?
You've been a counselor there?
Yeah, past 2 years I've been a counselor. This year I will be the music, art, and drama programmer. At camp.
And you were originally a camper?
I was never a camper there.
You were never a camper.
Samantha was.
Yeah.
You were a camper. Tell me about that. How'd you end up at Camp Kamoki as a camper?
I lived in subsidized housing, so there's a lovely group, Aluko, and
Aluko,
they.
what does that stand for?
I wish I knew.
Never mind. It just sounds like an
On the
acronym
spot.
for something.
Yeah.
It is indeed an acronym. I just can't remember what it is.
All right.
But
Oh,
they are also like a church-oriented group that helps sponsor kids to go to camp who couldn't afford to go to camp. And they have a very long-standing relationship with Chemo Key. And so when I was about 6 years old, I got sponsored to go to camp. And then every single year after that, until I was about 13 or 14, I was sponsored to go to camp. So I've been there since I was about 6 years old.
Wow.
So
you
it
have a
really,
long history with that camp.
I do. I took 2 years off after my last summer as a camper. I did my LIT program there, and then I worked as a counselor.
LIT is leadership and training?
Leader
Yes,
in training,
exactly.
yeah.
And then I worked as a counselor for a couple of years. I was a programmer, and then last summer I was an assistant director. So I've been
Wow.
there for a very, very long time. It really is home to me.
Yeah. Why does it hold such a special place in your heart? Like, what is it about the place that's to use the word sacred to you?
It really is actually quite sacred. It's a family there. You don't just hang out and make friends. You make lifelong friends. I've made friends from when I was a camper who I actually still speak to after
Like Ian?
that.
We
like
didn't met
Ian,
when we were
but
campers.
we did not meet when we were campers. No,
Yeah.
You guys know how to ruin a good story.
we do. We really do. My story's
You were
so
hoping
good.
for something else.
I had a very romantic idea of how all that was going, and now we didn't meet as campers.
We did not.
Okay, all right, fine.
But it's a family. You make lifelong friends. You make memories that last a lifetime. But the skills and the qualities that you learn as a person, because it is a United Church run camp, there are some values that they instill in you to be a better person, to grow as a person, to give back to your community. That's really big at Chemo Key, is giving back. And the thing that I always liked about our camp was it's not a very well-funded camp. And so we make the best experience with as little resources as possible, and kids still have the most incredible time there, and it's amazing.
Formative, right? That's the word. I think
Yeah.
we used that word with you once, did we not, Ian? That it was formative. It formed some of your ideals and
Yeah.
understandings and about a lot of different aspects of your life, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I still don't know
Maybe
what
we didn't have
formative
that.
means.
Oh, formative in the sense of it formed you.
Oh,
when you
yeah.
Look at, when you look at yourself as who you are now, and some of the things that
Yeah.
are important to you, and that
Yeah,
you
camp
can
is
look back on
definitely-
that experience and say,
Yeah.
I
That's a
had
turning
those
point.
experiences there,
Yeah.
and it translated into
Yeah.
who I am today.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Pardon me. Follow up on that,
Keep going.
which is to say, you said that you got out to camp when you were 6 years old.
yeah.
And the people who got you there were basically a religious organization of some
Yes.
sort,
Yeah.
a church organization.
Yeah.
So, again, you know, the sort of overriding theme of what we do here is about faith in the public square, how they intersect. You are quite engaged right now in the work of studying things around the public policy and everything
Yep.
that goes with that. You would not describe yourself as a church person.
Not at all, no.
And so would you say you're an atheist?
I would, yes.
Okay. So in the midst of all of that, well, no, it's all good. Some of my best friends are atheists. I've
Ian's
just
making silly
actually,
faces
great
at me.
book, great book I just started reading, recommended to me by a previous guest on here named Ken Eastwood. It's called The Atheism Overreach. It's incredible. It basically talks about some of the new atheism, which is sort of like fundamentalist Christianity. It sort of overreaches.
Okay, yeah.
And then it just sort of negates. So you see, they wouldn't see the value in what that church group organization
Yeah.
did for you.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing from you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong,
Yep.
and I'd like to hear you elocute on this a little more, but you may not believe in God, but you obviously, I think, understand the value of religious institutions as they relate to the public square and their ability to make a positive impact or to do something which is worthwhile.
I wouldn't say religious institutions, but I would say religion in general. People
But it was a
who-
religious institution that got you to camp,
Yes. Yeah.
and it was an institution that you
Yes.
were at the
Yes.
camp.
By like religious institution,
Supported
I mean
by a religious
church.
institution called the United Church of Canada.
Yes.
Yes.
I am very hesitant around the institution of the church. Mostly because I actually was baptized at one point, despite the fact that I now don't believe in God. But I was baptized Roman Catholic, and I have a troubling relationship with them because of stories that I've heard from my mom, who grew up as a Roman Catholic, as well as obviously the stories in the news, etc. But I don't like it as an institution, but I understand the values of like being a faithful person, and I can respect that and understand. I just don't need to believe in a God to have the same values as someone who is religious.
Fair enough.
But I'm grateful for the experiences that I've been given because of religion.
Yes. So the larger issue, I guess, that I'm getting at is, and I mean, we've had many conversations about this on here with people who are sort of on the fringe of spirituality, religious life, is just around the notion that, I mean, I think it's in vogue to sort of at times kick around the religious institutions. I think it's easy to do because we have lots of black eyes.
Yeah.
We have lots of negative things about the institution that we need to account for and own, not the least of which is our relationship with our Indigenous brothers and sisters. And if you're a part of the Synod recently, for instance, the Bridge Builders, and the work that the Anglican Church is doing right now to sort of make real the recommendations of truth and reconciliation, then you see that there's much work being done by the institution to try and make those things better. But I think it's very easy to kick the institution around, but what we don't often do is acknowledge what the institution does.
Yeah.
So the institutional church, regardless of whether it's United Church, Anglican Church, Roman Catholic Church, or whatever else, the fact that you two are so connected and formed by Camp Kamoki, which is a United Church camp, says to me that even if you don't know it, the institution itself has provided something exceedingly valuable.
Yes.
And that is having an impact now, in a way, because we've got these two young people here engaged in their own way in the work of public testimony. I mean, I call it testimony. You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But the fact is that the values that you hold didn't just pop up like a mushroom in the night. They came from somewhere.
Yes.
And so I think that there is a positive value. So if you talk about the hospitals that we have across this province, and most of their origins being in the church, many of them, schools like the ones that you and I went to, Huron College, is one of the largest liberal arts colleges on campus now.
Yep.
But its origins are in the Anglican Church.
An institution, it came from the institution
of the
itself.
church.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just think that it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's an interesting juxtaposition that you are an atheist who works at a Christian camp, who has deep-seated values, deep values of goodness and wholeness. And you're right, you don't have to be religious to have those sorts of values. But that a lot of what's been instilled in you, in my mind, or has formed you, has come from that place. Another question is about Kimoki. Can anybody tell me what Kimoki means?
No idea. Do you guys know?
Do you know?
You asked
It's
us
in your
what
staff
synod
manual.
meant, and I
You
didn't
should
know.
know.
It
So you gotta
stands
go with
for,
Kamoki.
I can't remember the first word, but it's like something of the running water, something like
Where
that.
does it come from?
It's Indigenous, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is indigenous.
It is Indigenous, yeah. And it means running water.
Yeah.
Because,
Kimoki means running water.
yes,
Okay.
because the grounds that we are on used to be a lake, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So it was all covered up completely, and
Yep.
now it is not.
You mentioned. So my question was, you mentioned your baptism in the Roman Catholic Church,
Yes.
but did you have in your family or your community at all a understanding at all of Indigenous spirituality? Was that something that was brought up at all, or that you had a taste of in any way?
It actually wasn't. So I grew up with my mom, but I get my Indigenous legal status from my dad.
Okay.
And he wasn't part of me growing up. So the only time I really went to the reservation was actually to renew my status card, because that was the one thing I had that identified me as Indigenous.
Yeah.
I didn't really get in touch with my Indigenous spirituality and like my identity as an Indigenous person until about university. So growing up, it was very much, I was either like, I didn't believe in God, or there was a time in my life where I truly believed that there was a God, and I was baptized and all of that. But I didn't really get in touch with it until pretty much I'd moved away from Catholicism and kind of found who I really am as a person.
Right. Because I know certainly for me, since I've come back to Huron College years ago and started to study and started to take an interest and see more around Indigenous spirituality, the understanding I had of Christian theology has been enhanced by that.
Yeah.
And so I'm very aware of how, stepping into that and studying it a bit and trying to understand it and talking to people that are close to it like that. It can be an eye-opener.
It can
and
be.
it really is. And anyway, I've certainly found
that's
it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I find your whole story interesting, Samantha, and I think that if we're able to engage in the conversations around how public policy, religious values are one thing, but the institutions that espouse them, working towards being a just and fair organization is critical. So I'm encouraged when I hear people like Ian and Samantha talk about things. They're passionate about what they're learning, and that's
definitely.
great hope
and,
for all of us.
Yeah, you guys are engaged, and that's a big
Look,
part
wait a
of
minute.
of
You
what-
two are engaged?
No, they're not engaged.
Surprise! This is our announcement.
Don't be starting anything here. We don't want phone calls. But no, being engaged in these kinds of issues is incredible, and we're glad you're doing it, and we hope it continues, and we wish you
too.
well with your paper.
Thank you.
Hopefully you get published, and we'll be walking around a campus at university and getting lost as we usually do, and run into Professor Powless here.
I hope so.
And
Professor Powless, how long is this paper going to be?
It has to be minimum 60 pages.
you're on page
7.
Okay, well there you go.
When does it have to be done?
August.
Okay, perfect. Can I get a copy? Because I have a little project coming up, and I need some things to say.
Well, Samantha, thanks for dropping by, being part of the Vickers Crossing.
Thank you for having
and
me.
we wish you well moving forward. Ian, thanks for all your work.
No problem.
You did it again, buddy.
I did.
He keeps us alive. He's our lifeblood, Kevin.
He is indeed. He's an
Yeah.
incredible man. He's
I'm here.
He's our rock, our inspiration. In fact, you might say he's the wind beneath our wings.
Thanks, Bet. Don't sing.
I'll refrain. I'll filter.
Remember to check us out on Twitter at Vickers Crossing and on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
There's some good pictures, too, on there from our Synod
Yeah.
adventures. So
Yeah.
make sure you tune in and check those
Email
out as well.
your questions for asking and anything to vickerscrossing@gmail.com.
And congratulations again to Nathan, who was our big winner of our contest.
And you know what the good news is there? He already has his T-shirt.
He already has his T-shirt.
because he modeled a T-shirt for us, and we said keep the T-shirt, so I don't have to send him a free T-shirt.
That's right.
But
That's
we'll
good.
send him the jacket and the gift certificates.
Thanks
Brilliant.
to Aleppo on Wonderland Road in London, one of our great sponsors, and of course all the gang here at Crossings Pub and Eatery on Hyde Park Road in London. And that's going to
tried,
wrap up another Vickers Crossing. What's that?
I was going to say, I was here at Crossings today. I tried that fat tire.
Oh, Fat Tire from a New Belgium Amber Ale.
Yeah, it's I don't know where it's from, but it's bloody good.
Was it good?
Yeah. What about you? What'd you have?
What were you?
I had a Belgian moon.
Okay.
Belgian Moon.
What about you, bud?
Sleeman.
Okay.
For
and
me today.
Ian,
What did Ian have?
Ian had Dad's root beer
Yeah, I
again.
did. Yeah, I did.
The day will come, Ian.
And that will be a good day.
That will be a good day. We'll
Wow.
do a whole podcast all afternoon. We'll see what it sounds like at the end.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. Until we get
Brilliant.
together again at the Vickers Crossing, we want to remind you, and Kevin, to all of our listeners, remember that's very important.
It's very
to
important,
Look, to
very
look both
important.
ways, Kevin.
Before you cross the street.
Thank you for listening. Our hosts are Kevin George and Rob Henderson. Our producer and composer is myself, Ian, with original artwork done by Catherine Olenek. If you have any questions or want to know where to find us, tweet us at Vickers Crossing or find us on Facebook at The Vickers Crossing. If you have any other questions about anything heard on this podcast, leave us a comment or look in the description to find out more. Thanks!